Okay, so been a number of questions regarding the assignment 4 and some of the just misunderstandings that's been going on with that. I admit that it was probably a little bit confusing. We were trying to hurry up and get the assignment out there so you'd have enough time to do it before our hard deadline. Uh, this this deadline is a hard deadline. It's I cannot accept any late assignments for this because of the final exams beginning the next day. Okay, so here's what's gonna happen here. I'm going to explain some of the methods. I'm gonna explain all the methods that we listed here, and then maybe even give a little bit of advice about some of the other stuff. So, okay, let's talk about the assignment. Okay, so here you'll notice that there's 4 methods that I've defined here for you. You have to have now a main method that's going to take a command line argument. Okay, it will pass the base file name as a command line argument. I think I have an example down here if I remember correctly. Yes. Here. So if I were to run this with this command line argument, it should take this file, and it should produce these files. So see, it should take CSE 101, and it should say, okay, it should look for a file named CSE 101 course details, CSE 101 student scores, read those in, get that information in, okay, and then it should then output these 2 files, CSE 101 student grades, CSE 101 log. Okay, the log file will be all the errors that happen, if there are any. It should still produce the file. It should just be empty if there were no errors at all. Okay, and student grades are all the different students that we were able to calculate, and the information related to their overall grade, their grade letter, their grade GPA, their GPA based on this score, and whether or not they passed, conditionally passed, or failed. Okay, so you should also check when you run this whether or not the course details information is correct. So here we have an example. Again, we're going to run the Java course grade, and instead of CSE 101, we're going to pass it CSE 101A. Okay, CSE 101A course details. I didn't include a student scores for this because it doesn't even read the student scores. It doesn't need to have the student scores if the course details are bad. Okay, so here what we did was, oh, well, this only adds up to 90. That's not 100%. We can't do this. We cannot figure out this how to make this 100%. Okay, so what happens? We produce the log file, CSE 101A log, that's error, course details, invalid weight. It doesn't add up to 100. Okay, check for also negative weights and negative quantities as well in that. Okay, so yeah, so just want to make sure that that's clear. And don't only use CSE 101 and CSE 101A. I could give any file name. I could call it CSE 313. I could call it CSE 203. Anything. I could, but not have to be CSE. It could be anything. Okay, so I want to make sure that you guys don't get caught up in this. Oh, it has to be a CSE 101. It doesn't, and in fact, it won't be. So make sure that your program can take this command line argument, and it could be anything. It just needs to say, look for this string plus underscore plus course details. Look for this string plus underscore plus student scores. Okay, all right. So that's how the main method works. Okay. Now I'm going to show you some examples of these other ones. Okay, so some simple ones. This count category. It's going to take a file name as a string, and it's going to tell me how many categories are in that file. Okay, so for example, if I were to give it this file name, CSE 101 course details.txt, it should tell me 4. There's 4 categories there. If I were to give it course details, CSE 101A course details.txt, it should tell me 3. There are 3 categories there. Okay. Note that it's not checking anything about whether or not the file is valid. So it's not going to return some weird number for this file just because it doesn't add up. It's not asking that. The only thing it's asking is how many categories are there. That's the only thing it's asking for. Okay. All right. Then we're going to have a get category method. Now we're going to pass it an array for the strings of the category names, an array for the quantities for all the different category quantities, an array for the weights for all the category weights, and a file name. Again, it will likely be the same file name here, but again, not necessarily. So what it's going to do is it's going to get category is going to say, okay, give me my file name, fill in all the categories, fill in all the category information. Okay, the inside of this method will do that. Okay. And then finally, write grades. Now this one was the one that was a little bit difficult for you guys to understand, so I expanded on it. I expanded some information. I added some. Okay, it's going to give you a student array. So the names of the students. So the array of strings for the student names, a decimal array, a double array, okay, for the grades of each student. These arrays should be the same size. Okay, you're not required to check that, but just, you know, they should be. Okay, and then a base file name. And the reason why this I named this base file name is because this will actually produce two files. Okay, this will produce a file for student grades, and it will produce a file for log for errors on the student grades. Now, how you determine based on this grade, how you determine what's an error condition and what's a valid grade is entirely up to you. Okay, you need to figure out how you're going to do that. Okay, there's a few ways that I could tell you how to do that, but I'm not going to. I want to see, how do you think a good way to determine how to make an error in the grade would be? Okay, all right. So you'll have student for each student. They'll have a grade, a corresponding grade value, and they'll write it to that base file name. Again, base file name, whatever we pass it, plus student grades will give me the grades, plus log will give me the errors. All right, so let's switch over. I'm going to switch over to the Java window now, so you guys can see how this is done. Okay, so now here you'll see I have this grades array over here of 8 grades that I'm going to use for writing to an output file. Okay, here there's nothing in here. Oh, you know what? I do need to put my file in here. Why is it not in there? Oh, there it is. Okay, so notice this is my example files that I gave you guys. My course details here, my student scores here. Notice I added a new student because I wanted to see a student that did really well. Okay, and we're going to see how that turns out as well. It has the same name. That's not a problem. We'll see it there twice. Okay, and then this one that has the wrong information. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I am going to now, for my 8 students, for my 8 grades here, I'm going to give them all names. Okay, and I'm going to give them all these names. So notice that each one of these, the 190 corresponds with, as you would expect, that's the grade I put in this array for them. Okay, and then the last one is going to be an invalid grade of some kind. Okay, so I created my name array. Okay, now let's go ahead and go with that last method first. So now let's write my grades. Okay, so the write grades method, and I'm going to give it my name array. I'm going to give it my grades array, and I'm going to give it a file name. It doesn't have to be CSE 101. It could be anything. Let's just call it test. Okay. Now this is a base file name. And when I run this, okay, void, this method doesn't return anything. Okay. It doesn't do anything. In fact, if I were to just say, okay, just put it with a semicolon on the end, nothing. I don't see anything. Nothing gets displayed. Nothing gets printed to the screen. There's no system.out.println line. Okay. But what I do have is I have these two files, a test log and a test student. Notice that all of my students there, this was their grade that was in that array that I talked about. Okay, if I go back and look at it, that's what's in this array of grades. I'm not going to show you what's in there because I want you to think about how that invalid student gets represented. Okay, so notice here 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40. That's their grades. This is their letters and what they got. Okay, and test log, student name invalid. This is an invalid score. Cannot calculate it due to invalid grade entered. Okay. All right. And what you can do is we could take grades, let's say grades of 0. Okay. So this is our 100 student, right? And we want to change their grade from, let's give them a decimal value. Let's give them really low grade, actually 12.333. Okay. So now, if I go back and look at the file, okay, let me close that out. If we go back and look at the file, notice nothing changed here because I haven't changed anything in the file. I haven't written their file again, right? It's just changed in the array inside of the program. All right, so inside of memory. Okay, so now if I write the grades now if I test log, it should still be that same student. That's good. Now look, now he has that grade that I just entered, 12.333, and he failed and he got 0 points for GPA. Okay, so that's how the write grades method should work. Okay, let's talk about what was the other two? Okay, let's talk about the count category and the get category methods. Okay, so that's pretty simple, straightforward. Here, if I count category of, let's say this file here, right? CSE underscore course details.txt. Okay, if I say how many are there in that? Oh, CSE 101, wasn't it? This actually shows something. If the file's not found, the way that I did it was I just generated a file not found exception. It's an error. Okay. So there are 4. Yep, there's 4. All right. If I said, well, how many are in A? 3. Yep, there's 3. And if I give it a file that doesn't exist, I get this error here. Okay, so count category, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Okay, now let's do one last thing. That get category method, because that one's going to be a little bit more involved. That one's going to be a little bit harder. Okay, so let's create some arrays here. Let's create our category, quantity, and weight arrays. Now I've created them of size 4. That does not mean that there's only 4, but for my example here, I just wanted to show you that, in fact, actually here, let me do it this way. Let me create them of size 6 just to show you what happens here. Okay. And I think because they're already in memory, I'm going to have to delete. Whoa. The type declaration here. Okay. All right. So here, notice category is a string of nulls, a string array of nulls, int array of zeros, int array of zeros. Okay. Now, if I go through and say, okay, I want to get the category information, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it the category, the quantity, weight. And I need to give it a text file. Okay. So I give it this. Notice again when I run this, it's a void method. It doesn't return anything. But watch what happens when I look in my category array. Oh, look, all those things got filled. Notice the extra ones didn't have anything. Okay, so it fills in the first however many slots there are for course details, however many slots there are with the category names. It fills in the first however many slots there are with the category quantities. It fills in the first however many slots there are with the category weights. Again, it does not check. Well, let me show you that. Let me show you what happens when I do it with the A text. Okay. Okay. So here, A. Let's look at what A looks like. Homework midterm final. The rest is nothings. 3, 1, 1. The rest is nothing. The rest is zeros rather. And then 20, 30, 40. The rest are zeros. Okay. So notice again what I was about to say a second ago. It does not check to make sure that this is valid. It simply does the job of filling the arrays with the information that's in the file. Okay. I hope that's clear. Notice one other thing too. The way that I did this, if there were extra positions in the array, it fills them with zeros. Okay. You don't have to do it that way. There's no requirement. Okay. In fact, well, yeah. In fact, the way that I do the way that I solved this myself, these arrays are not, they are the exact size necessary to hold the information that's in this file. They're not bigger than what's in this file. They're not smaller than what's in this file. Okay. So I did that a certain way. You don't have to do it that way. What I can tell you is that there will not be more than 10 categories. Okay. There won't be more than 10 categories in the things that we test. But what you will need to do is you will need to take your array and fill it with whatever's in there. Okay. Let me show you one more thing, by the way. An interesting thing here. I want you to notice that if we swap quantity and weight, okay, here, we don't get an error. That's okay because these are still the same types. We still want to get category, weight, we still need to take a string array, an int array, and a string. The only thing that happens is that it just gets swapped up, right? Quantity takes on these values here, and weight takes on these other values, which is wrong, which isn't the way that we wanted. This would be a logical error, not a runtime error, right? Now, if we were to try to do instead put category later, nope, not there, there, right? And if we were to try to run this, now we would get an error, right? Now this would actually, what this would do is if this were a program we were writing, a Java file we were writing, this would give us a compiler error because this order is completely wrong. But here, this doesn't give us a compiler error or a runtime error because this category, weight, quantity follows the types that we need for that method: string array, int array, and string. Okay. So I hope all of this has kind of cleared some up of what we expect for the count category, get category, write grades, and the main method. Oh yeah, well, one other thing then, let me go ahead and just show you this. So if we were to run that Java program, if we were to run method, right, main, And what we want to do is we want to give it a string array. Now, the way you would run this is like I showed you from the command line Java course grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the what is it called? And then the command line argument, and the command line argument would get put into the array like we talked about in class. Okay, but if I give me CSE 101 an array, main method. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. So we give it a string array. This is the value inside of it. Doesn't give us an error. It creates our stuff, right? CSE 101, there, log, there. All right. If I give it the CSE 101A, right, take a look at what no student grades file, which we would expect. Why? Because the invalid weight and doesn't sum to 100. If I give it something that doesn't exist, CSE 101B, I get a runtime error, file not found. Okay. All right. So I hope that clears all that up. So one final note on this. These 4 methods that I've defined are not even close to all the methods that I wrote for this program. Okay, I wrote more methods for this program than what I told you guys to define. I think that's the best way to be able to divide up work in a computer program. So you are free to write all the methods that you think would help you understand this problem and solve this problem, but you don't have to write any other methods. The only ones that will be tested will be those 4. Okay. Again, if you have any more questions, anything else that you're not quite clear on, please, please, please let us know. Contact either myself or Taha Hoja about any questions that you might have that you still don't understand. Okay, let's finish this semester strong and get through this and get through the final exam next week, and then you guys can have a nice break before the spring semester. Okay. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you on Friday.